In Book 3, Episode 16 of Avatar: The Last Airbender, an episode called The Southern Raiders that aired on July 17, 2008. A 14-year-old girl who has spent 3 seasons being the emotional center of the group, the caretaker, the healer, the one who holds everyone together when everything falls apart, looks at the man who killed her mother and raises her hand. She does not raise it to heal. She does not raise it to protect. She raises it to bend the blood inside his body, to take control of his muscles, his movements, his autonomy, to make him a puppet. And in that moment, the kindest character in the series becomes something the show has spent 60 episodes teaching you she could never be. The man is not who she expected. The man is old. The man is pathetic. The man does not even remember her mother's face. And Katara, the girl who healed strangers and forgave enemies and believed in the goodness of people so fiercely that it became her defining trait, stands over this broken old man with the power to end him and the rage to justify it, and a lifetime of kindness, that is, for the first time, not enough. That is not a character being out of character. That is a character being complete. Before we go further, subscribing helps keep long-form content like this coming. It is free and it takes a few seconds. Now, let us talk about what happens when the nicest characters in Avatar stop being nice. There is something the show understands about kindness that most stories get wrong. Most stories treat kindness as a fixed trait. A character is kind or they are not. Kind characters heal. Kind characters forgive. Kind characters hold the group together, while the angry characters and the powerful characters do the dramatic work. Kindness, in most stories, is a baseline, a default, a setting that does not change because changing it would undermine the character's identity. Avatar does not do this. Avatar treats kindness not as a fixed trait, but as a choice. A daily, ongoing, effortful choice that requires energy and attention and willpower. And because kindness is a choice, it can be unchosen, not permanently, not as a character transformation, but in moments, in cracks. In the specific devastating instances, when the weight of what a character has endured exceeds the capacity of their kindness to contain it, when the nicest characters snap, the snap does not reveal a hidden darkness. The snap shows you what the kindness has been holding back. And the distance between the kindness and the snap, the enormous emotional distance that the show has built through episodes and seasons of establishing how gentle, how caring, how good this character is, that distance is what makes the snap land like a physical blow. Because you were not prepared, because the show made sure you were not prepared. Because the show built a version of this character that was so consistently, so reliably, so beautifully kind that the idea of them snapping seemed impossible. And then the impossible happened, and the impossible was the truth. Katara is the obvious starting point because Katara's snap is the most carefully constructed snap in the entire series. It does not happen suddenly. It does not arrive without warning. It builds across 3 seasons, through a series of moments that the show plants like seeds, each one small enough to miss on a first viewing but significant enough to alter your understanding of the character on a second one. The first seed is planted in the very first episode. The Boy in the Iceberg, February 21st, 2005. Katara is 14 years old, and she is the last waterbender in the Southern Water Tribe. The last one. Every other waterbender was taken, killed, or captured by the Southern Raiders, the same Fire Nation unit that would later kill her mother. Katara is not just a waterbender. She is a survivor of a targeted campaign of elimination. She is the one they missed, and the show in its opening episode does not dwell on this. It presents Katara as hopeful, as optimistic, as the voice of reason and compassion in a world that has given her very little reason to be any of those things. The kindness is established. The reason for the kindness to fail is established alongside it, hidden in the same sentence, planted in the same soil. Her mother, Kaya, died to protect her. This is revealed gradually across the series, but the core of it is simple and devastating. The Southern Raiders came to the Southern Water Tribe looking for the last waterbender. Kaya told them she was the waterbender. She said it was her. She lied to save her daughter, and the Fire Nation soldier, a man named Yon Ra, killed her. Katara was a child. Katara found the aftermath. Katara grew up knowing that her mother died because of her, not because Katara existed. Because Katara was a waterbender. Because Katara's existence was the thing that drew the Raiders to the village, and her mother's love was the thing that placed Kia between the Raiders and her daughter. The guilt embedded in this is enormous, and the show handles it with extraordinary restraint. Katara does not talk about it constantly. She does not perform her grief. She carries it the way real people carry grief, which is to say she carries it most visibly when she does not mean to, in moments of sudden anger or unexpected emotion that seem disproportionate to their triggers. When Katara snaps at Sokka for not caring enough about their mother. When Katara freezes when someone mentions the Fire Nation. When Katara's kindness towards strangers takes on an almost desperate quality, as if caring for others is the mechanism by which she processes the care she could not provide for Kaya. The show does not explain these moments. It trusts you to connect them. And if you connect them, you start to see that Katara's kindness is not the absence of anger. It is the alternative to anger. It is what Katara chose instead of rage. And the choice is conscious and effortful, and it costs her something every time she makes it. The Puppet Master, Book 3, Episode 8, November 9th, 2007. This is the episode that gives Katara the tools she will use when she snaps. Hama, an elderly waterbender from the Southern Water Tribe, the same history, the same stolen waterbenders, teaches Katara a technique called blood bending, the ability to manipulate the water inside a living body, to control a person like a puppet. Hama learned this technique in a Fire Nation prison, born from desperation and rage, refined through years of captivity. She teaches it to Katara not as a gift, but as a weapon. And Katara, in the climax of the episode, is forced to use it. Forced to bloodbend Hama to save her friends. The moment she does it, the moment she takes control of another person's body against their will, Katara breaks. She cries. Not because the technique failed, because it worked. Because she used it. Because the kindest character in the series has now done the most violating thing any bender in the series has ever done. The show lets this sit. It does not resolve it quickly. It does not have Katara process the experience in a subsequent scene and move on. The bloodbending sits inside Katara like a loaded weapon, and both she and the audience know it is there, and the knowledge changes the way you watch her, because now you know what she is capable of. Now you know that the kind girl can do something terrible. And the kindness, which before felt like a stable foundation, now feels like a choice being made in the presence of a terrible alternative. Katara is kind because she chooses to be kind, and she could choose otherwise, and you have seen what otherwise looks like. The Southern Raiders is the episode where Katara stops choosing, where the weight she has been carrying since childhood, the guilt and the grief and the rage and the knowledge that her mother died for her, exceeds the capacity of her kindness to contain it. Zuko, newly allied with the group, tells Katara he can help her find the man who killed her mother. And Katara says yes, not hesitantly, not with the moral deliberation that her character has displayed for 3 seasons. Immediately, fiercely, with a clarity that is terrifying because it is so unlike the Katara you have come to know. The journey itself is the snap in slow motion. Katara interrogates a Southern Raider soldier. She is not kind, she is not compassionate. She is not the girl who healed strangers and believed in second chances. She is precise and cold and effective, and she uses her bending not to help, but to threaten. She bloodbends this man, a different man, not even the right man, just someone in the uniform. And the bloodbending is not desperate this time. It is not forced. It is deliberate. Katara reaches into this man's body and takes control of his movements because she wants information, and this is the fastest way to get it. The kindness is gone, the compassion is gone. What remains is a girl who has decided that being nice is no longer sufficient for what she needs to accomplish. And then she finds Yon Ra, and Yon Ra is not what she expected. He is old, he is retired, he lives with his mother, whom he resents. He is small and pathetic and afraid. He is not a monster, he is a man who did a monstrous thing and then went home and lived a small, diminished life that was its own kind of punishment. And Katara stands over him in the rain, with the power to kill him, with waterbending so precise that she stops the rain itself, suspends the droplets around them like a frozen galaxy. And she looks at this man and she decides. She does not kill him. That is the part everyone remembers, but it is not the most important part. The most important part is the moment before the decision. The moment when killing him was real. The moment when Katara, the kindest character in the series, the healer, the caretaker, the moral compass, genuinely considered ending a man's life. Not in the heat of battle, not in self-defense, in cold, calculated personal vengeance. The snap was real, the snap was complete. And the decision not to kill was not kindness reasserting itself. It was something harder. It was Katara looking at the full scope of what she was capable of, the bloodbending and the rage and the violence and the grief, and choosing, again, not to be that person. But this time the choice was made with full knowledge. This time the choice was made by someone who had seen the alternative, had held it in her hands, had felt its weight and its appeal, and had set it down. Not because she could not. Because this is what separates Katara's snap from simple anger. Simple anger would have been an outburst, a shout, a momentary loss of control. Katara's snap is a sustained, deliberate, multi-day campaign of violence and intimidation, driven by a grief that has been compounding interest for years. The snap is not the absence of the kindness. The snap is what happens when the kindness can no longer contain what it has been containing. The vessel cracks, and what pours out is not the opposite of kindness. It is the cost of it, the accumulated weight of every moment Katara chose compassion over rage, every moment she forgave instead of condemned, every moment she held the group together instead of falling apart. The snap is the bill coming due, and the bill is enormous. The show does not apologize for snapping. She does not say she was wrong to seek out Yan-Ra. She does not say the bloodbending was a mistake. She tells Aang, who argued for forgiveness, that she cannot forgive Yan-Raha. She will not forgive him, but she is willing to stop, to choose, one more time, the harder path. Not the path of forgiveness, which Aang advocated for, but the path of release, of letting go, of accepting that the man who killed her mother is not worth the person she would have to become to punish him. This is not forgiveness. This is something more complicated than forgiveness. This is a girl who snapped, who saw what she was capable of, who carried it all the way to its logical conclusion, and who decided at the final moment that the conclusion was not worth the cost. Not because the anger was wrong, because the anger was not enough. There is a detail in the Southern Raiders that most analyses overlook, and it is the detail that makes Katara's snap most devastating. It is Zuko's role. Zuko, who was the enemy for 2 seasons. Zuko, who chased the group across the world. Zuko, who betrayed Iroh in Ba Sing Se. Zuko, who represents the Fire Nation that killed Kia. It is Zuko who enables Katara's snap. He is the one who offers the mission. He is the one who provides the intelligence. He is the one who flies with her on Appa through the night to find Yon-Ra. And the reason he does this is not because he wants Katara to have revenge. It is because he understands her anger in a way that Aang does not. Aang tells Katara that violence is not the answer. Aang advocates for forgiveness. Aang, who lost his entire people to genocide, tells Katara to let go of her rage. And from Aang's perspective, this is consistent. Aang found energy bending rather than killing Ozai. Aang believes in mercy. But from Katara's perspective, Aang's advice is insufficient. Because Aang's loss is 100 years old and Katara's loss is present tense. Because Aang lost his people to an abstract historical event, and Katara lost her mother to a man with a face and a name. Because the grief Aang carries has been processed through a century of ice, and Katara's grief has been processed through a lifetime of choosing to be kind when everything inside her wanted to scream. Zuko does not tell Katara what to do. Zuko simply says, "I will help you." And the help is what Katara needs. Not advice, not a moral framework, not a speech about forgiveness. Help. The practical, non-judgmental, here is the ship, let us go kind of help that you offer someone whose pain has outgrown the container they built for it. Zuko understands this because Zuko's own pain outgrew its container years ago. Zuko snapped long before Katara did. The difference is that Zuko's snap was slow and public and everyone saw it happening. Katara's snap is sudden and private, and the only person who sees it fully is Zuko. And Zuko does not flinch because Zuko knows what it looks like when a good person encounters the limit of their goodness. This dynamic, the dynamic of one character enabling another character's snap by simply witnessing it without judgment, is one of the most mature things the show ever does. It does not moralize. It does not tell you that Katara was right or wrong. It shows you a person in crisis and another person standing next to them, and both of them carrying pain that the world has not given them sufficient tools to process. Katara's snap is not a failure of character. It is a failure of containment. The kindness worked for years. The kindness held the grief and the rage and the guilt in place for years. And then it did not. And when it did not, when the container cracked and the content spilled, the mess was enormous and the mess was real, and the show does not clean it up neatly, because life does not clean up neatly. Katara is never quite the same after the Southern Raiders. The show only has a few episodes left, so the change is subtle, but it is there. She is harder, not unkind, not cruel, but harder. The softness has an edge now. The compassion has a limit that was previously invisible and is now visible. She knows her limit. She has seen it. She has stood on it and looked over the edge and decided not to jump. And the decision was hers. Not Aang's, not Zuko's, not the show's. Hers, Katara's snap, is ultimately a story about autonomy, about a kind person claiming the right to not be kind, about exercising that right fully and freely and then choosing, on her own terms, to return to kindness. Not because kindness is obligatory, because kindness after the snap is chosen with full awareness of the alternative. And chosen kindness, kindness that has seen what unkindness looks like and rejected it not out of ignorance but out of knowledge, is stronger than the kindness that preceded it. Katara's kindness after the Southern Raiders is not naive. It is earned. It is the kindness of someone who knows exactly what she is capable of and chooses gentleness anyway. That is what snapping does for a character like Katara. It does not break the kindness, it tempers it. Like a sword in a forge, the heat does not weaken the metal. The heat makes the metal stronger. Katara went through the fire of her own rage and came out the other side, and the person who came out was not less kind. She was more kind in a deeper and more durable way because the kindness was no longer a default. It was a victory. And then there's Aang. Aang, whose snap is different from Katara's in almost every way. Katara's snap is deliberate. Katara chooses to pursue Yanra. She plans the journey. She makes conscious decisions at every step. Aang's snap is involuntary. Aang's snap is the avatar state. And the avatar state is in its most raw and uncontrolled form, the snap of a boy whose kindness has been overwhelmed by a pain so large that his body cannot contain it and the universe has to step in. The Desert, Book 2, Episode 11, July 14th, 2006. Appa has been stolen by sandbenders. Appa, who is not just Aang's transportation, but Aang's last connection to the air nomads, the last living being who knew Aang's life before the iceberg, the companion who has been with him since childhood. Appa is gone, and the sandbenders, the ones who took him, are standing in front of Aang. And one of them, Gashyun, admits it. He muzzled Appa. He traded Appa to merchants. What happens next is the most terrifying moment in the entire series, not because of the violence, though the violence is implied, because of the transformation. Aang's eyes glow, his tattoos illuminate, the air around him begins to spiral. Sand rises from the desert floor in a column that dwarfs everything on screen. And the boy who rides penguins and makes marble tricks and approaches the world with a 12-year-old's enthusiasm becomes something ancient and furious and barely contained. The avatar state, uncontrolled, is not heroic. It is catastrophic. It is every avatar who has ever lived channeling their grief and their power through a child who has lost the last piece of his old life and cannot process the loss through normal human means. Katara stops it. Katara grabs Aang's hand and pulls him down from the column of sand and holds him, and Aang cries. The snap ends not through willpower or resolution, but through contact. Through the physical reality of another person holding you while the worst thing you can imagine is happening. Katara does not say anything profound. She does not offer wisdom or philosophy or a path forward. She just holds him. And the holding is enough to bring Aang back from the edge of a power that would have destroyed everything in the desert if it had been allowed to continue. This moment reveals something essential about Aang's character and about the nature of snapping for someone who is fundamentally, constitutionally kind. Aang does not choose to snap. Aang is snapped. The grief triggers the avatar state, and the avatar state takes over, and Aang is not the person acting. The universe is acting through him, and the universe in the avatar state does not care about kindness. The universe in the avatar state is pure power responding to pure pain. The kindness is gone not because Aang discarded it, but because the pain pushed past it, flooded over it, overwhelmed the banks that Aang's personality had built to contain the rivers of grief and rage that flow through a person who lost everything. The show uses the avatar state as a metaphor for the snapping of nice people in a way that is both fantastical and psychologically precise. Because the truth about kind people snapping is that it often does not feel like a choice. It feels involuntary. It feels like a container that you built and maintained and reinforced every day of your life, suddenly proving inadequate for what it was being asked to hold. And when it breaks, the force that comes out is not proportional to the immediate trigger. It is proportional to everything the container was holding. Every grief, every rage, every moment of chosen patience, chosen forgiveness, chosen calm. All of it comes out at once. And the person standing in the middle of the explosion is often as surprised as everyone else. Because they did not know how much was in there. They did not know that the kindness was a dam, and behind the dam was an ocean. And the ocean was rising, always rising, every day a little higher, and they kept building the dam a little higher too. Always just high enough until the day it was not. Aang snaps multiple times in the series, and each time the trigger is connected to loss. The Southern Air Temple, when he finds Gyatso's skeleton. The desert, when he loses Appa. The crystal catacombs of Ba Sing Se, when he makes the decision to let go of Katara to access the avatar state. and is shot down by Azula's lightning. Each snap follows the same pattern. Kindness meets a loss it cannot contain. The dam breaks, the avatar state erupts, and someone, usually Katara, pulls Aang back from the edge. The pattern is important because it shows that snapping for Aang is not a one-time event. It is a recurring vulnerability. The kindness reforms after each snap, the dam rebuilds, but the dam is never quite as strong as it was before, and the ocean behind it is always a little higher, because each loss adds to the accumulation, and the accumulation never decreases. Kindness does not erase grief. Kindness contains grief, and containment is not the same as resolution. The show's most interesting use of this pattern comes in the Book 2 premiere, The Avatar State, which aired on March 17th, 2006. General Fong tries to deliberately trigger Aang's avatar state by simulating the loss of Katara. He threatens Katara, he appears to harm Katara, and Aang snaps. The avatar state activates, and Aang, in his rage, nearly destroys General Fong and his entire base. The trigger was fake. The loss was simulated. But the snap was real. And the reality of the snap in response to a simulated loss tells you something devastating about the state of Aang's emotional infrastructure. The dam is so fragile that even the illusion of loss is enough to break it. The grief behind the kindness is so immense that it does not need a real trigger, it needs only the suggestion of one. The container is always on the verge of cracking. The kind boy is always one moment away from becoming something the kind boy would never choose to be. This is the cruelest aspect of the show's treatment of Aang. It gives him a nature that is genuinely, beautifully kind, and then places that nature inside a reality that is constantly testing its limits. Genocide, war, loss, betrayal. The murder of his people, the theft of his companion, the threat to his friends, all of these things push against the kindness. All of them test the dam, and each time the dam holds, the holding costs something, and each time the dam breaks, the breaking costs something else. Aang's kindness is not free. Aang's kindness is expensive, and the avatar state is the receipt. What makes the comparison between Katara's snap and Aang's snap so illuminating is the difference in control. Katara's snap is controlled, she plans it, she executes it. She makes choices throughout the process, and those choices reflect her agency even in her darkest moment. Aang's snap removes his agency entirely. The avatar state takes over. Aang's personality, his kindness, his values, his identity, all of it is subsumed by a cosmic force that does not care about any of those things. Katara snaps as herself. Aang snaps as something other than himself. And this difference maps onto something real about how different people experience the breaking of their own kindness. Some people, when pushed past their limit, become sharper versions of themselves. Their anger is focused. Their cruelty, if it comes, is precise. They know what they are doing, and they choose to do it, and the choice is terrible, but it is theirs. Other people, when pushed past their limit, become unrecognizable. The anger is formless, the reaction is disproportionate. They look back at what they did and do not recognize the person who did it. They say, "That is not me." They mean it. And they are right, in a way, because the person who acted in that moment was not the person they usually are. It was the accumulated pressure of everything they usually contain, released all at once in a form that their conscious self did not authorize and does not endorse. The show treats both forms of snapping with equal seriousness and equal compassion. It does not judge Katara for her cold, deliberate pursuit of Yonra. It does not judge Aang for the uncontrolled devastation of the Avatar state. It simply shows you both. It shows you what happens when kindness meets its limit in two different people with two different constitutions and two different relationships to their own pain. And it trusts you to understand that neither snap invalidates the kindness that preceded it. The kindness was real, the snap was real, both are true, both are the same person. And the person is not less kind for having snapped. The person is more known, more visible, more complete. And this brings us to Iroh. Iroh, whose snap is perhaps the most devastating of all, because Iroh's kindness is not the kindness of a child or a teenager. Iroh's kindness is the kindness of a man who has already been everything kindness is not. A general, a conqueror, a weapon of the Fire Nation. Iroh has been the fire. Iroh has been the person who breaks things. And Iroh chose, after the death of his son Lu-Ten, to stop being that person and to become someone gentle and warm and funny and kind. Iroh's kindness is a second act. It is built on the rubble of a first act that was violent and imperial and destructive. And because it is built on rubble, because Iroh knows exactly what he is choosing not to be, his kindness carries a weight that Katara's kindness and Aang's kindness do not. When Iroh snaps, it is not a revelation that he contains darkness. Everyone knows Iroh contains darkness. He is the Dragon of the West. He conquered Ba Sing Se. His past is a matter of public record. When Iroh snaps, the revelation is something subtler and more frightening. It is the revelation that the darkness is still there, that the years of tea and proverbs and patience did not extinguish it, that the gentle uncle is sitting on top of a volcano, and the volcano has not gone dormant. It has just been dormant is the difference between safe and waiting. Iroh's snap during the Siege of the North is the first real glimpse of this. December 2nd, 2005. Admiral Zhao has captured the moon spirit, the physical form of the moon itself. A fish in a sacred pond. Iroh warns Zhao. Iroh, standing on the side of the Fire Nation, technically an ally of the man he is warning, tells Zhao that what he is doing will have consequences that extend beyond any military objective. Iroh is calm. Iroh is reasonable. Iroh is using the voice of the kind uncle, the diplomat, the wise old man who prefers tea to combat, and Zhao ignores him. Zhao kills the moon spirit, and Iroh's face changes. Not dramatically, not with a scream or a battle cry. The face changes the way a landscape changes when the sun goes behind a cloud. The warmth leaves, the patience leaves. The kindness, the entire edifice of gentleness that Iroh has built over years of deliberate self-reconstruction, drops away. And what remains is the dragon. The fight is short. It is almost insultingly short. Iroh tears through Zhao's guards with a ferocity that makes the combat look less like fighting and more like weather. Fire erupts from his hands with a precision and a power that the show has spent an entire season hiding from you. And the hiding is the point. Because you knew intellectually that Iroh was powerful. The show told you he was powerful. But knowing it intellectually and seeing it are different things. Seeing Iroh fight with the fury of a man who has set aside his fury for years, and now, in this moment, for this reason, has picked it back up, is a different experience than knowing he could. The scene changes your understanding of every cup of tea, every joke, every proverb, every moment of patience, because now you know what the patience was holding back. And what it was holding back was this. But Iroh's most complete snap, the snap that carries the full weight of his character, happens in the series finale. The liberation of Ba Sing Se. Iroh leads the Order of the White Lotus into battle during Sozon's Comet, when firebending is amplified to its maximum power. And Iroh, the man who spent 3 seasons being the gentlest person on screen, unleashes fire that tears through the walls of the city he once conquered as a general. The irony is deliberate. The show is showing you the same man, in the same city, doing something that looks like what he did before, but means something completely different. The first time Iroh attacked Ba Sing Se, he did it for the Fire Nation, for conquest, for glory, for the ideology that killed his son. This time Iroh attacks Ba Sing Se to liberate it, to free it, to undo what the Fire Nation did. The violence is the same, the fire is the same, the man is different, and the difference is the kindness. The kindness he built between the 2 sieges. The kindness that transformed a conqueror into a liberator. The kindness that, in this moment of snapping, does not disappear. It changes the meaning of the fire. This is the most complex version of a nice character snapping that the show presents, because Iroh's snap is not a reversion. He is not reverting to the Dragon of the West. He is being the Dragon of the West and the tea-loving uncle at the same time. The fire is old Iroh, the purpose is new Iroh, the violence is the past, the liberation is the present. And the combination, the integration of the destroyer and the healer into a single act is what makes Iroh's snap not a breakdown but a synthesis. He is not snapping despite his kindness. He is snapping because of it. Because the kind version of Iroh looks at Ba Sing Se under Fire Nation occupation and says this is wrong. And the Dragon of the West is the tool the kind man uses to make it right. The fire serves the tea, the violence serves the peace. And the snap, rather than revealing a contradiction, Iroh cries before the battle. He cries. The man who is about to tear through walls with fire that could level buildings stands with his men and his eyes are wet. And his voice breaks and you understand, in that moment, that the fire is not separate from the tears. The fire comes from the tears. The fury comes from the grief. The Dragon of the West breathes fire because the uncle who makes tea is heartbroken. And the heartbreak needs an expression proportional to its size, and the only expression large enough is the fire that Iroh has been holding back for years. The snap is not anger. The snap is grief that has found a legitimate target. Grief for Lu Ten. Grief for Ba Sing Se. Grief for the world his family damaged. Grief for the years he spent being part of the damage. All of it compressed into fire, directed at the walls that separate a occupied city from its freedom. The kind man snaps, and the snap saves the city. There is a character in the show whose snap is less discussed than Katara's or Aang's or Iroh's, and yet it might be the most psychologically complex of all. That character is Zuko. And you might be thinking that Zuko does not belong in a discussion of the nicest characters in Avatar because Zuko spends 2 seasons as the antagonist, but consider Zuko's nature, not his behavior, his nature. Zuko, stripped of the Fire Nation ideology and the scar on the father who burned him and the sister who manipulates him, and the century of imperial propaganda that shaped his worldview, is fundamentally kind. He is the boy who feeds the turtle ducks in the palace courtyard. He is the boy who defended a soldier in a war meeting and was punished for it. He is the boy whose instinct, before the scar, before the banishment, before the years of anger, was to protect the vulnerable. The Agni Kai, the one that gave Zuko his scar. Zuko spoke up in a war meeting against a general's plan to sacrifice an entire division of new recruits as a distraction. A child stood up in a room full of adults and said, "This is wrong. You cannot use soldiers as bait. These are people." That is not the act of an antagonist. That is the act of the kindest person in the room. And the punishment for that kindness was a duel with his own father. And when Zuko stood in the arena and saw that his opponent was Ozai, not the general, he refused to fight. He got on his knees. He begged. He said, "I am your loyal son." And Ozai burned half his face off. That is the original snap, but it is not Zuko's snap. It is Ozai's. What it does to Zuko is worse than a snap. It takes the kindest impulse Zuko has ever displayed, the impulse to protect strangers, to speak against injustice, to be good, and punishes it so brutally that Zuko spends the next 3 years trying to become something other than kind. The scar is a lesson. The lesson is that kindness gets you burned. And Zuko learns the lesson. He buries the kind boy. He becomes the angry prince. He chases the avatar. He does cruel things and desperate things and foolish things. Not because cruelty and desperation and foolishness are his nature, but because his nature got him burned, and the burning taught him that his nature was wrong. Zuko's arc across the series is the arc of a kind person trying to be unkind and failing. Every act of cruelty he commits is effortful. Every betrayal costs him something. Every time he does what his father would want, what the Fire Nation would demand, what the scar teaches him to do, you can see the resistance. The kind boy is under there. The kind boy is pushing back. The kind boy who fed the turtle ducks and spoke for the soldiers is not gone. He is buried. And the burial is exhausting. And the exhaustion is what drives Zuko's anger. He is angry because being unkind is hard work for someone whose nature is kind. He is angry because the world punished him for being good, and now he has to pretend to be something else, and the pretending never fits right, and the mask never sits comfortably, and every day he wears it is a day spent in a shape that is not his own. Zuko's snap, his real snap, is not a moment of darkness. It is a moment of light. It happens in the middle of Book 3, in the episode The Day of Black Sun Part 2, which aired on November 30th, 2007. Zuko goes to confront his father, not to fight him, not to challenge him for the throne, to tell him the truth, to say out loud to the man who burned him the words that the kind boy has been carrying for 3 years. "I am not what you wanted me to be. The Fire Nation is wrong. The war is wrong. You are wrong. And I am leaving." This is the snap, not violence, not rage, not the explosion of contained darkness, the explosion of contained kindness. Zuko snaps back into his own nature. The kind boy surfaces. The kind boy stands in front of the father who burned him and says, "I will not be what you made me. I am what I was before the scar. I am the boy who spoke for the soldiers. I am the boy who feeds the turtle ducks. I am kind, and your cruelty did not kill that. Your fire did not burn it out of me. It is still here. It has been here the entire time, and I am done pretending it is not." Ozai responds with lightning. Of course he does. Kindness expressed in Ozai's presence triggers violence the same way it triggered violence in the Agni Kai. But this time, Zuko is ready. This time Zuko redirects the lightning using the technique Iroh taught him. The technique born from studying waterbenders. The technique that takes the enemy's power and channels it safely through your body and sends it somewhere else. Zuko takes his father's lightning and sends it past him and walks out. He does not stay to fight. He does not need to win. He needs to leave. He needs to take the kind boy out of the room where the kind boy was burned and bring him somewhere he can breathe. This is the most unusual snap in the series because it is a snap toward kindness rather than away from it. Every other character in this discussion snaps from nice to something darker. Zuko snaps from dark to something nicer. from the persona to the nature, from the mask to the face, from the thing the world told him to be to the thing he always was. And the snap is just as violent, just as dramatic, just as transformative as Katara's bloodbending or Aang's avatar state or Iroh's fire. But the direction is reversed. The explosion is not darkness escaping the container of kindness. The explosion is kindness escaping the container of darkness. And the explosion is beautiful. There is a moment after Zuko leaves the palace, after he has told his father the truth and redirected the lightning and walked away, when Zuko stands alone under the sky and the weight of what he has done settles. He has betrayed his nation. He has defied his father. He has abandoned his birthright. He has declared himself the enemy of everything he was raised to believe in. And the look on his face is not triumph. It is relief. The look of someone who has been holding their breath for 3 years and has finally exhaled. The look of someone whose snap was not a breaking, but a release. The container did not crack because the contents were too heavy. The container was opened because the contents needed to breathe. Zuko's snap reframes the entire concept. It says that snapping is not always the loss of something good. Sometimes, snapping is the recovery of something good. Sometimes the thing being contained is not darkness but light. Sometimes the nicest character is the one whose niceness has been locked away, imprisoned, buried under scars and propaganda and fear. And the snap is the prison break. The snap is the kind boy escaping the angry prince. The snap is the turtle duck feeder walking out of the war room. The show does something structurally brilliant with the way it sequences these snaps across the series. Katara's snap comes late, in the final stretch of Book 3. Aang's snaps are distributed throughout the series, recurring eruptions that the show uses as emotional punctuation. Iroh's snap is saved for the finale, the last battle, the culminating moment. And Zuko's snap, the reverse snap, happens in the middle of Book 3, providing the pivot point around which the final arc revolves. The sequence matters because the sequence creates a conversation between the snaps. Each one informs the others. Each one adds a new dimension to the show's understanding of what it means for a kind person to reach their limit. Aang's snaps say, kindness can be overwhelmed by grief, and the grief does not disappear when the kindness returns. Katara's snap says, kindness can be exhausted by injustice, and the right to stop being kind is a form of justice itself. Iroh's snap says, kindness can coexist with violence when the violence serves a purpose the kind person has chosen. Zuko's snap says, kindness can survive its own destruction, can persist through years of suppression, and can re-emerge stronger than the forces that tried to kill it. Together, these 4 snaps create a complete portrait of what kindness actually is in the show's worldview. Kindness is not passive. Kindness is not the absence of anger or violence or darkness. Kindness is a force, an active, effortful, costly force that operates alongside its opposite, that contains its opposite, that is sometimes overcome by its opposite and sometimes overcomes it. And the snapping, the moment when the force of kindness meets the force that opposes it and something gives, is not a failure. It is a necessary event in the life of any person who is genuinely kind. Because genuine kindness, kindness that is real and not performed, kindness that engages with a world that gives it constant reasons to fail, will eventually encounter a moment it cannot contain. And that moment, the snap, is not the end of the kindness. It is the test, it is the crucible, it is the forge in which the kindness either breaks permanently or emerges tempered and stronger and more durable than before. Every nice character and avatar passes the test. None of them break permanently. Katara returns to compassion, Aang returns to tea, Zuko arrives at kindness for the first time as himself. The snapping does not destroy them. The snapping transforms them, and the transformation in every case makes the kindness more resilient, more informed, more honest. Post-snap kindness is the strongest form of kindness the show depicts. Not kindness that has never been tested, kindness that has been tested and survived. Kindness that knows what it cost and chose to pay the price. There is a moment in the show that encapsulates this better than any other. It happens in the very last episode. Aang faces Ozai during Sozin's comet. The fight is enormous. The bending is cosmic. Ozai is at the peak of his power and Aang is fighting to save the world. And there is a moment, a specific moment, when Aang has the opportunity to kill Ozai. The opportunity is clear. The power is available. The justification is overwhelming. Every past avatar has told him to do it. His friends have accepted the necessity. The world needs the Fire Lord dead. And Aang, the boy who snapped in the desert, the boy whose kindness was overwhelmed by grief and rage and cosmic power, the boy who lost control of himself and became something terrifying, that boy looks at Ozai and chooses not to kill. This is not the same Aang who entered the desert. This is not the Aang whose kindness was naive, whose dam was fragile. whose goodness had never been tested by anything larger than a schoolyard bully. This is the Aang who has snapped, who has felt the Avatar state rip through his personality and replace it with pure fury, who has experienced the absolute limit of his own containment and seen what exists beyond it. And this Aang, the post-snap Aang, the tested Aang, the Aang who knows exactly how much darkness he contains and exactly how much force his kindness must exert to contain it, this Aang chooses kindness. Not because he does not know the alternative, because he does. Because the snapping taught him the alternative. Because the desert and the Southern Air Temple and the Crystal Catacombs showed him what happens when the kindness fails, and the showing was enough to make him never want to be that person again. The snap is the teacher. The kindness post-snap is the lesson learned. Energy bending is the physical expression of this lesson. It is the technique that allows Aang to defeat Ozai without killing him, to remove the threat without committing murder, to be the Avatar without being the executioner. And energy bending exists in the narrative specifically because Aang needed it to exist, because Aang's post-snap kindness demanded an alternative that pre-snap kindness never had to look for. The naive Aang might have accepted the necessity of killing Ozai, because the naive Aang had never confronted the full scope of what violence means. The post-snap Aang, the Aang who has been the violence, who has felt the Avatar state use his body as a weapon, who has seen the devastation that uncontrolled power produces, this Aang cannot accept the necessity. This Aang demands another way, and the universe provides one, not because the universe is kind, because Aang's kindness, tested and tempered and strengthened by every snap it survived, is strong enough to demand it. There is a smaller snap in the series that deserves attention, and it belongs to a character who is easy to overlook in these discussions. That character is Roku. Avatar Roku, the Avatar before Aang. The kind one, the reasonable one. The one who believed that diplomacy could prevent war, that friendship could transcend politics, that good faith between individuals could override the ambitions of nations. Roku was kind. Roku was patient. Roku was, by all accounts, a good Avatar who genuinely believed in balance and spent his life trying to maintain it through peaceful means. And Roku snapped. Once, in a scene that the show presents as flashback in the episode The Avatar and the Fire Lord, Book 3, Episode 6, which aired on October 26th, 2007. Roku discovers that his childhood friend, Fire Lord Sozin, has begun colonizing Earth Kingdom territory. Roku confronts Sozin, he goes to the Fire Nation capital, he speaks to his friend. He uses the voice of reason. He uses the language of diplomacy. He appeals to their shared history, their childhood bond, their mutual respect. And Sozin does not listen. Sozin dismisses the concerns. Sozin says the Fire Nation is sharing its prosperity with the world. And Roku snaps. The Avatar state activates. Not the uncontrolled Avatar state of grief, like Aang in the desert, but a controlled, deliberate, devastating display of power directed at the infrastructure of the Fire Nation capital. Roku destroys the throne room. He crumbles walls. He towers over Sozin with the full power of every Avatar who has ever lived. Blazing through his eyes, and he says, in the single most threatening line an Avatar has ever delivered, that if Sozin threatens the balance again, Roku will end him. The snap works. Sozin backs down. For decades, Sozin does nothing. The threat of Roku's power, the memory of the kind Avatar becoming something terrifying, keeps the Fire Lord in check. The snap is effective. The snap prevents a war. The snap is by any practical measure the right thing to do. And it is not enough, because Roku's snap, however effective in the moment, contains within it the seed of its own failure. Because Roku snaps and then returns to kindness. He goes back to his island. He goes back to the patient, reasonable, kind Avatar, who believes in friendship and diplomacy and the goodness of people. And while Roku is being kind, Sozin is waiting. Sozin is planning. Sozin understands something about Roku that Roku does not understand about himself. That the snap was temporary. That the kindness is the default. That the threat, however genuine in the moment, will not be sustained. Sozin waits for Roku to die, and when Roku dies, trapped on a volcanic island, calling for help from the friend who stands watching while the lava consumes him, the war begins. The genocide begins. The century of destruction that Aang will inherit begins. Roku's snap is the show's most tragic example of the limits of snapping for kind people, because Roku proves that snapping once is not enough, that the display of force, however devastating, is not a substitute for sustained vigilance, that the kind Avatar who snaps and then returns to kindness leaves a gap, a window, a space between the snap and the sustained vigilance that the enemy can use. Sozin used it. Sozin waited for the kindness to reassert itself, and then he waited for the kind man to die. and then he acted. And the genocide of the air nomads, the 100-year war, the entire catastrophe that defines the show, is the consequence of a kind person snapping once and then going home. This is a devastating commentary on the relationship between kindness and power. It says that kindness by itself, even when it contains the capacity for terrible force, is insufficient to prevent evil if the kindness does not also contain the willingness to sustain the force. Roku could destroy Sozin. Roku proved this. Roku's snap was overwhelming. But Roku could not sustain the destruction because Roku's nature pulled him back to kindness, back to trust, back to the belief that the threat was enough. And the belief was wrong. The threat was not enough. The evil was patient enough to wait for the kindness to return, and when the kindness returned, the evil moved. The show gives this lesson to Aang through the memory of Roku's failure. Aang inherits not just Roku's power, but Roku's mistake. And the question the show poses, implicitly through the entire final season, is whether Aang will repeat it. Whether Aang, after defeating Ozai, after ending the war, after restoring balance, will make Roku's mistake and return to kindness without sustaining the vigilance. The show does not answer this question directly, but it answers it structurally through energy bending, because energy bending does not just defeat Ozai, it removes Ozai's bending permanently. It ensures that the Fire Lord cannot wait for Aang's kindness to reassert itself and then act. Aang learned from Roku's snap. Aang learned that snapping once is not enough, that the kind person must find a way to neutralize the threat permanently, not through sustained violence, which contradicts kindness, but through a single transformative act that makes the return to kindness safe. Energy bending is the answer to Roku's failure. It is the technique that allows a kind person to snap once, decisively, permanently, and then go home. Roku's ghost tells Aang to be decisive, to act with the full force of the Avatar, to not make the mistake Roku made, the mistake of believing that friendship and patience and the better angels of human nature would be sufficient to prevent the worst that human nature can produce. And Aang listens. And Aang is decisive. But Aang is decisive in a way that Roku could not have imagined. Decisive with compassion. Decisive in a way that honors both the snap and the kindness that follows the snap. Roku showed Aang what happens when a kind person snaps and goes home. Aang finds a way to snap and go home and ensure that going home is safe. There is another character whose snap is woven so deeply into the fabric of the series that you might not recognize it as a snap at all. That character is Gyatso, Monk Gyatso. Aang's guardian, the kindest monk at the Southern Air Temple. The elder who played Pai Sho and made cakes and laughed easily and loved Aang with the patient, uncomplicated love of someone who sees a child for who they are rather than what they are supposed to become. When the other monks told Aang he was the Avatar at age 12, earlier than any Avatar had been told, Gyatso objected. When the other monks wanted to separate Aang from Gyatso to send the boy to the Eastern Air Temple for more intensive training, Gyatso fought it. He fought for Aang's childhood. He fought for Aang's right to be a kid, to play games, to not be crushed under the weight of a destiny he did not choose. Gyatso was, in every interaction the show presents, the embodiment of gentle, protective, selfless love. And Gyatso snapped. The show does not show you the snap directly. It shows you the aftermath. When Aang returns to the Southern Air Temple in Book 1, Episode 3, the Southern Air Temple, which aired on February 25, 2005, he finds Gyatso's skeleton. The skeleton is surrounded by Fire Nation soldiers. Dozens of them, dozens of Fire Nation soldiers, Comet enhanced at the peak of their power, and they are all dead, around the body of a single air nomad monk. The show never explains how Gyatso did this. The show never tells you what technique he used, what bending discipline he deployed, what form of airbending is capable of killing dozens of Comet-enhanced firebenders. The show simply shows you the evidence. A gentle old monk surrounded by the bodies of the soldiers who came to kill him. And the evidence tells a story that the show has no need to narrate. Gyatso snapped. The gentle man became something else. The monk who made cakes and played games with his student became, in the final moments of his life, a force so devastating that a Comet-enhanced army could not stop him. This is the most haunting snap in the series because it is invisible. You see only the result. You do not see the moment when Gyatso's kindness failed, when the gentle monk looked at the soldiers coming to kill his people, to kill the children, to exterminate the air nomad civilization, and decided that gentleness was no longer sufficient. You do not see what Gyatso's face looked like in that moment. You do not see whether he cried, or screamed, or fought in silence. You see only the bodies and the skeleton, and the implication, the devastating implication, that the kindest person Aang ever knew died doing something that the kindest version of himself would never have chosen. Gyatso's snap haunts the entire series. It haunts Aang specifically, because when Aang finds the skeleton, when the realization of Gyatso's death hits him, Aang enters the Avatar state for the first time. The snap triggers a snap. Gyatso's violence, evidenced by the bodies, triggers Aang's cosmic fury. And the chain continues. The kindest person Aang knew died violently, and the knowledge of that violence activates a violence inside Aang that will recur throughout the series, always triggered by loss, always proportional not to the immediate cause, but to the accumulated weight of everything Aang has carried since the moment he found his guardian's body, surrounded by the people his guardian killed. The show is asking a question through Gyatso that it never asks explicitly. What does a pacifist do when the enemy comes to kill the children? The air nomads are monks. They are vegetarians. They value all life. Their philosophy is built on non-attachment and non-violence, and the freedom of all living things. And the Fire Nation came to exterminate them. What do you do? What does the gentlest person in the world do when gentleness is not an option? When the choice is between your principles and the survival of the people you love. When the pacifist must fight or die, or more precisely must fight and die, because fighting will not save them either. Fighting will only mean that the death is not passive, that the gentle man went down as something other than gentle, that the last act of the kindest monk was violence. The show does not answer this question. The show leaves Gyatso's skeleton surrounded by Fire Nation soldiers and lets the image speak for itself. And the image says something that no dialogue could say. It says that even the most committed kindness, the most disciplined gentleness, the most profound commitment to non-violence has a breaking point. And the breaking point is not abstract. The breaking point is soldiers coming for the children. The breaking point is the genocide at the door. The breaking point is the moment when the choice between principles and survival is no longer theoretical, and the kind person must choose, and the choice, either way, destroys something that the kind person cannot bear to lose. Gyatso chose to fight. He chose to break his principles. He chose to use airbending, the element most associated with freedom and spirituality and non-violence, as a weapon. And the choice killed him. And the choice killed the soldiers, and neither death prevented the genocide. Gyatso's snap was total and futile and magnificent and heartbreaking. The kindest character in the show's history fought to the death against impossible odds. And the fighting did not save anything except, perhaps, Gyatso's own sense that he did not go quietly, that the gentle man did not accept the violence passively, that when they came for his people, the monk who made cakes and played pie show and loved the boy enough to fight for his childhood stood up and said no. Not enough, but no. And this brings the conversation to a character whose snap is, in some ways, the emotional center of the entire series, even though it occupies only a few minutes of screen time. That character is Iroh again, but not the Dragon of the West version, the father version. The version who sang leaves from the vine and wept beneath a tree, and who, in the most profound sense of the word, never stopped snapping after Lu Ten's death. Because Iroh's true snap was not the siege of the north or the liberation of Ba Sing Se. Iroh's true snap was the moment his son died. And everything Iroh became after that, the tea, the proverbs, the kindness, the patience, the warmth, was the aftermath of the snap, not the recovery from it. The continuation of it, Iroh is a character who snapped once, permanently, and whose permanent snap expressed itself not as sustained rage, but as sustained gentleness. The death of his son broke the conqueror, and the breaking produced the uncle. The snap was not a momentary loss of control. The snap was a permanent change of state, from fire to tea, from general to uncle, from dragon to guardian. And this reframes every subsequent moment of Iroh's character. Every cup of tea is a decision made in the aftermath of the snap. Every joke is a coping mechanism refined over decades. Every proverb is a lesson learned from the worst thing that ever happened to him, processed and distilled and offered to others so that they might avoid the path that led him to the moment he lost everything. Iroh's entire post-Lu Ten existence is a snap in slow motion, a continuous, ongoing, never-ending response to the breaking point that transformed him from the person he was into the person he chose to become. When Iroh breaks down beneath the tree in Tales of Ba Sing Se, singing to his dead son on the boy's birthday, the tears are not the snap. The tears are the snap's echo, reverberating years later, still as strong as the original. Brave soldier boy comes marching home. The song is simple. The song is for children, and the man singing it is not a soldier anymore. And the boy is not coming home. And the simplicity of the song against the complexity of the grief is what makes it unbearable. Iroh is not snapping in this moment. Iroh is showing you the snap that happened years ago. He is opening the door to the room where the snap lives and letting you look inside and the inside is a father holding a portrait of his dead son and singing a song that they both knew, and the song will never be finished because the boy who should be singing the next verse is under the ground. This interpretation changes the way you understand every other snap in the series. Because if Iroh's kindness is itself the product of a snap, if the gentle uncle is the aftermath of a breaking rather than the alternative to one, then kindness in Avatar is not what precedes the snap. Kindness is what the snap produces. The snap is not the end of kindness. The snap is the beginning. The breaking is the forge. And what comes out of the forge, tempered and shaped by the heat, is stronger than what went in. Katara's kindness after the Southern Raiders is stronger than before. Aang's kindness after the desert is deeper than before. Zuko's kindness after confronting Ozai is more authentic than anything he has ever expressed. And Iroh's kindness, built entirely on the ruins of his previous self, is the strongest in the series. Because it was forged in the hottest fire, because the snap that produced it was not temporary. It was total, it consumed the old Iroh entirely. And from the ashes, like the mythological fire that the Fire Nation should have been named for but was too busy conquering to learn from, came something new, something warmer, something kinder. Something that understood in its bones, in its cellular memory, in every atom of its being, that fire is not for destroying. Fire is for warming. Fire is for cooking tea. Fire is for sitting beside on a cold night and telling stories and being with the people you love, while the world outside burns and the only thing you can control is a small circle of light around your cup. Iroh's entire character is a snap that chose kindness as its expression. And that is the most radical thing the show ever does with any character. It takes the concept of snapping, which in most stories is the descent into darkness, and reverses it. It says that the breaking can produce light. It says that the worst thing that happens to you can become the best thing about you. Not always, not inevitably, not without effort and choice and the daily, grinding, exhausting work of choosing gentleness in a world that punished you for being gentle, but possibly, transformatively, if you are willing to let the breaking change you rather than destroy you. This is Iroh's gift to the show and to everyone who watches it. The demonstration that the snap is not the enemy of kindness. The snap is the experience that shows you what kindness costs and what kindness is worth, and what kindness can become when it has been tested by the worst things a life can contain. And the lesson, if you listen for it beneath the tea and the proverbs and the laughter, is that the kindest people are not the ones who have never been broken. They are the ones who were broken and chose to build something gentle from the pieces. There is a pattern in how the show films its snap moments that is worth slowing down for, because the animation does something during these scenes that it does not do at any other time. The color palette changes. Not subtly, the entire visual register shifts. When Katara bloodbends Yun-Ra's subordinate during the Southern Raiders, the screen goes darker. The blues deepen. The shadows encroach. The warm tones that typically accompany Katara's waterbending, the soft blues and whites of healing and protection, are replaced by something colder. The animation is telling you that the character has changed by changing the world around the character. The warmth has left not just the person, but the environment. When Aang enters the Avatar state in the desert, the opposite happens. The screen brightens to an almost blinding intensity. The glow of the tattoos and eyes overwhelms the natural colors of the desert. The sand itself seems to lose its color, washed out by the radiance of cosmic fury. The animation is saying something different here. It is saying that Aang's snap does not darken the world, it overwhelms it. The kindness is not replaced by something cold. The kindness is replaced by something so hot, so bright, so enormous that the world cannot contain it. The darkness of Katara's snap is controlled. The brightness of Aang's snap is uncontrolled, and the animation captures this difference perfectly. Katara's world gets colder, Aang's world gets hotter. Both are departures from the normal palette. Both signal that the nice character has left the territory of niceness and entered something else. Iroh's snap during the liberation of Ba Sing Se uses a third visual register. The comet paints the sky red and orange. The fire Iroh produces is not the controlled, contained fire of his normal bending. It is enormous. It fills the frame, and the colors, amplified by the comet, turn the entire scene into something that looks less like a battle and more like a painting of a sunset, or the end of something, or the beginning of something, or both at once. The animation does not darken the world for Iroh, and it does not brighten it to the point of washing out. It saturates it. It makes the world more vivid, more intense, more present, as if Iroh's snap, unlike Katara's coldness or Aang's overwhelming heat, simply makes everything more real, more true, more visible. The fire does not destroy the colors. The fire enhances them And the enhancement is the show's way of saying that Iroh's snap is not a departure from himself. The fire and the tea, the violence and the peace, the destroyer and the healer, all present, all real, all visible at the same time, saturated to their maximum intensity. Zuko's confrontation with Ozai has its own visual language. The bunker is dark, the war room is lit by torches. When Zuko speaks his truth, when the kind boy surfaces and the mask falls away, the lightning provides the illumination. Not warm light, not cold light, electric light. The light of the thing that was trying to kill him. Ozai shoots lightning and Zuko redirects it and the lightning illuminates the entire room. And for one brief moment, in the flash of the redirect, you see both of them clearly. The father and the son. The tyrant and the rebel. The destroyer and the kind boy. And then the light fades and Zuko walks out into natural light, into daylight, into the world that exists outside the bunker. And the visual transition from artificial darkness to natural light is the animation's way of saying what the dialogue is saying. Zuko has left the darkness. Zuko has entered the light, the snap has carried him from one to the other. These visual choices are not incidental. They are the show's primary storytelling tool during snap moments, more important than dialogue, more important than music, more expressive than any line a character could speak. Because the visual changes bypass your intellect and go straight to your emotions. You feel the darkening of Katara's palette before you understand it. You feel the overwhelming brightness of Aang's avatar state before you process it. You feel the saturation of Iroh's fire and the electric flash of Zuko's lightning before you can articulate what they mean. The show uses animation to make you feel the snap in your body, not just in your mind. And the feeling is what stays with you. The feeling is what makes you remember these moments years later. Not the words, not the plot points, the feeling. The cold blue of Katara's rage, the white blaze of Aang's grief, the red saturation of Iroh's liberation, the electric flash of Zuko's freedom. This is what animation can do that live action often cannot. It can change the world to match the character. It can make the environment an extension of the emotion. It can show you what snapping looks like not through facial expressions or body language, though it uses those too, but through the transformation of reality itself. When a nice character snaps in Avatar, the world snaps with them. The colors change, the light changes, the atmosphere changes, and the change is the show's way of saying that the snap is not just internal, the snap affects everything. The snap changes the world. Because the snap changes the person and the person exists in the world, and the world is not separate from the person, not in animation, not in this show, not in the visual language that the creators developed over 3 seasons to make these moments hit with the force they deserve. There is a conversation about kindness in children's media that Avatar contributes to in a way that few other shows have matched. Most children's shows treat kindness as a lesson. Be kind, share your toys. Include the person who is different. The lesson is delivered, the characters demonstrate it, and the episode ends with the lesson reinforced. Kindness is positioned as a simple, uncomplicated good. Something that costs nothing. Something that always works. Something that the good characters do naturally and the bad characters refuse to do. And the moral of the story is that you should do it too. Avatar dismantles this. Avatar says, kindness is hard. Avatar says kindness costs. Avatar says kindness will break you if you carry it honestly. Because the world is not kind back, and the gap between your kindness and the world's cruelty is something you have to live inside every day. Avatar says that kind people snap. That the snapping is not a failure but a consequence. That the consequence is not the end of the kindness, but a stage in the development of a deeper, more durable, more honest version of it. This is a radical message for a children's show. It tells kids and the adults who watch alongside them that being kind does not mean being unbreakable. That the strongest people are not the ones who never get angry. That anger, in the right circumstances, for the right reasons, expressed through the right channels, is not the opposite of kindness. It is the partner of kindness. It is the force that kindness calls upon when kindness alone is not enough. Katara's anger at Yanra is not a betrayal of her kindness. It is the cost of her kindness. Aang's avatar state is not a failure of his goodness. Iroh's fire is not a reversion to his past. It is his past serving his present. Zuko's defiance is not a rejection of his family. It is a reclamation of the self that his family tried to destroy. The show says you will snap. If you are genuinely kind, if you carry the weight of compassion in a world that does not always reward compassion, you will snap. And the snap will frighten you. The snap will show you things about yourself that the kindness kept hidden. The snap will make you question whether the kindness was real, whether the gentleness was a mask, Whether the person you thought you were was a fiction you maintained because the truth was too frightening to show. And then the show says, the snap does not define you. What you do after the snap defines you. Whether you return to kindness after the snap defines you, whether the kindness you return to is deeper, stronger, more informed, more honest than the kindness that preceded the snap, whether you learn from the breaking or are broken by it, whether you use the heat of the forge to temper the metal or let the heat consume it. Every nice character in Avatar is tempered by their snap. Every one of them comes through the fire stronger. And the show presents this not as a guarantee, but as a possibility. A possibility that requires work. Katara has to choose not to kill Yan-Ra. Aang has to learn to control the Avatar state. Iroh has to spend years building a new self from the rubble of the old. Zuko has to walk out of the bunker and into a world that does not know what to do with a kind Fire Nation prince. The tempering is not automatic. The tempering is a choice made repeatedly in the aftermath of the breaking by people who could just as easily have let the breaking define them. And this is where the show's message becomes personal. Because you know this, if you have been kind, genuinely kind in the way that costs something, kind in the way that requires you to contain anger and absorb hurt, and choose gentleness when everything inside you wants to scream, then you know what the snap feels like. You know the moment when the containment fails. You know the flood of everything you have been holding. You know the surprise and the shame and the fear that the snap has revealed the real you, and the real you is not the kind person you thought you were. The show says the real you is both. The real you is the kindness and the snap. The real you is the dam and the ocean. The real you is the tea and the fire. And the real you does not need to choose between them. The real you needs to hold them both. To be kind and know that the kindness has a limit. To be gentle and know that the gentleness can break. To be good and know that the goodness is not permanent, not guaranteed, not a fixed state, but a daily choice made in the presence of every reason to choose otherwise. The nice characters in Avatar snapped, and the snapping did not make them less nice. The snapping made them more real, because real kindness is not the kindness that has never been tested. Real kindness is the kindness that broke and reformed. That went through the fire and came out shaped differently. Harder in some places, softer in others. Tempered and true and informed by the full knowledge of what it costs and what it is worth. Katara knows what she is worth now. She stood over the man who killed her mother and held the power to end him and chose not to, and the choosing was the most powerful thing she has ever done. More powerful than any water bending. More powerful than blood bending, the power to destroy, and the choice to set it down. That is real kindness. That is earned kindness. That is the kindness that only comes from snapping and surviving the snap and returning to yourself with the knowledge of what you are capable of and the decision to be something else. There is something the show does with the aftermath of snapping that is as important as the snapping itself, and it is the way other characters respond. Because the snap does not happen in isolation. The snap happens in front of people, and the way those people react to the snap tells you as much about the show's values as the snap itself does. When Aang snaps in the desert, Katara does not judge him. She does not say this is wrong. She does not lecture him about the dangers of the Avatar state or the importance of controlling his emotions. She holds him. She pulls him down from the spiral of cosmic rage, and she holds him, and the holding is not conditional on him being the kind, gentle Aang she is used to. The holding is for this Aang. The snapping Aang, the one who is ugly with grief and dangerous with power and unrecognizable as the boy who makes marble tricks. Katara holds the full version of Aang, not just the pleasant version, and the holding says, I see all of you. I see the kindness and the rage. I see the marble tricks and the Avatar state, and I am here for all of it. Not just the parts that are easy to love. When Katara snaps during the Southern Raiders, Aang's response is more complicated. Aang objects. Aang argues for forgiveness. Aang tries to redirect Katara toward the path he would choose. And the show, remarkably, does not fully endorse Aang's position. It presents Aang's argument for mercy as valid, but insufficient. It presents Katara's anger as valid, but destructive. And it allows both positions to coexist without declaring a winner. The aftermath of Katara's snap is not Aang being proven right. It is Katara finding her own path, separate from Aang's path. A path that includes neither forgiveness nor murder, but something in between. Something the show does not have a name for. Something that lives in the space between moral frameworks. Zuko's response to Katara's snap is different from Aang's, and the difference is instructive. Where Aang tries to prevent the snap, Zuko accompanies it. Where Aang offers a philosophy, Zuko offers presence. And the show suggests, through the outcome, that presence is sometimes more valuable than philosophy. That the person who stands beside you while you snap, who does not try to stop you or fix you or redirect you, who simply says, "I am here, I will go with you, I will witness what you need to do," is sometimes the person you need more than the person who has the right answer. This idea that the response to someone else's snap matters as much as the snap itself runs through the entire series. When Iroh snaps during the Siege of the North, the characters around him step back. Not in fear exactly, in recognition. They recognize that the gentle uncle has shifted into something else, and that the something else is not to be interfered with. When Zuko snaps at Ozai, Ozai responds with lightning, which tells you everything about Ozai. The father responds to his son's moment of truth with lethal force. The response is the diagnosis. The response tells you that Ozai was never capable of seeing Zuko's kindness, not before the snap, and not during it, and not after it. Ozai responds to vulnerability with violence, because vulnerability in Ozai's world is weakness, and weakness is to be exploited, not respected. The show uses the responses to snaps to reveal character in a way that the snaps themselves do not. The person who snaps reveals what they have been containing. The person who witnesses the snap reveals what they are capable of. And the gap between the two, the gap between the snapper and the witness, is where the show's deepest commentary on human relationships lives. Can you hold someone while they break? Can you witness the worst version of someone you love and still see the best version? Can you be present for the ugliness without requiring the ugliness to resolve before you offer your support? Katara can. Katara holds Aang in the desert without conditions. Zuko can. Zuko accompanies Katara without judgment. Iroh can. Iroh witnesses Zuko's 3-year spiral into rage and responds not with disappointment, but with tea, with patience, with the sustained, unconditional, infuriating kindness of a man who has seen the worst of himself and recognizes the worst of others, and knows that the worst is not the whole, and that the whole is worth waiting for. The witnesses are as important as the snappers. The holders are as important as the breakers. And the show's most radical proposition might not be that nice people snap. It might be that the snap is survivable only because there are people willing to hold you through it. People who see you at your worst and do not leave. People who witness the flood and do not run but stand at the edge, and when it does, when you are standing in the wreckage of your own containment, they are still there, still holding, still present, still kind. That is the show's answer to the question of what happens after the snap. Not recovery, not redemption, not a return to a previous state. Something more honest, the presence of someone who saw you break and chose to stay. The knowledge that you are not alone in the wreckage. The understanding that the snap, as terrifying as it is, as isolating as it feels, is something you share with the people who love you. They do not experience it, they cannot feel what you feel, but they can stand next to it. They can hold the hand that held the lightning. They can pour the tea while the fire cools. They can be the tether that pulls you back from the edge, not through wisdom or philosophy or the right words at the right time, but through the simple, radical, world-altering act of staying. There is a thread connecting all of these snaps that the show never states explicitly, but that becomes visible when you lay them side by side, and it is about the relationship between love and violence. Every snap in Avatar is driven by love. Every single one. Katara snaps because she loved her mother and the man who killed her mother is alive, and the love has nowhere to go except toward destruction. Aang snaps because he loved Appa, loved the air nomads, loved the world that was taken from him, and the love overwhelmed his capacity to contain it. Iroh snaps because he loved Ba Sing Se, loved the world his family damaged, loved the idea of a world without the Fire Nation's imperialism, and the love demanded action. Zuko snaps because he loved the boy he used to be, the turtle duck feeding boy, the boy who spoke for soldiers, and the love for that lost self demanded its recovery. Gyatso snapped because he loved the children of the Air Temple, and the love demanded that he stand between them and the fire, even though standing would not save them. Love is the trigger. Not hate, not rage, not darkness. Love. The nicest characters snap because they love too much, and the world hurts what they love, and the hurt is more than the kindness can contain. The snap is not the failure of love. The snap is love's overflow. The snap is what happens when the container of kindness can no longer hold the volume of love, and the love spills out in a form that looks like rage, but is, at its core, grief. Grief for what was lost. Grief for what was threatened. Grief for the distance between the world as it is and the world as love demands it should be. This is why the snaps in Avatar hit so hard, because you recognize the love underneath the fury. When Katara raises her hand to bloodbend, you see the girl who lost her mother. When Aang rises into the Avatar state, you see the boy who lost his people. When Iroh breathes fire, you see the father who lost his son. When Zuko confronts Ozai, you see the child who lost his childhood. The fury is secondary. The fury is the symptom. The love is the disease. If disease is the right word for something so fundamental, that without it, the character would not exist. Take away Katara's love for Kaya, and there is no Southern Raiders. Take away Aang's love for Appa, and there is no Desert Snap. Take away Iroh's love for Lu Ten, and there is no Dragon of the West, and no tea-loving uncle, and no liberation of Ba Sing Se. Take away Zuko's love for the boy he used to be, and there is no confrontation, and no lightning, and no redemption. The love is the engine, the snap is the exhaust. And the show's genius is in showing you the exhaust, the dramatic visual, devastating exhaust, and then making you look past it to the engine. Making you see that the terrible thing the nice character is doing is driven by the beautiful thing the nice character is feeling. Making you understand that the violence is not the opposite of the love. The violence is the love expressed in a register that love does not usually occupy in a moment when the usual register is insufficient. This is not a justification. The show does not say that Katara's bloodbending is justified because she loved her mother. The show does not say that Aang's destruction in the desert is acceptable because he loved Appa. The show shows you the complexity. It shows you that an act can be driven by love and still be wrong. That a feeling can be beautiful and its expression can be ugly. That the nicest person you know can do something terrible, and the terribleness does not erase the niceness, and the nicest does not excuse the terribleness, and both are true at the same time, and both are the same person. This is the maturity that sets Avatar apart. Most stories about nice characters snapping choose a side. Either the snap is justified and the character was right to do what they did, or the snap is wrong and the character must atone. Avatar does neither. Avatar holds both truths simultaneously. Katara was driven by love. Katara's actions were violent and invasive and morally questionable. Both statements are true. Neither cancels the other. And the character who emerges from the snap is not a character who has been judged. She is a character who has been seen, fully, in all her complexity, in all her contradiction, in all the messy, ungovernable territory between kindness and fury that real human beings inhabit every day. The show sees its characters the way we wish people would see us. Not as one thing, not as the kindness or the snap, not as the pleasant version or the ugly version, as both, as the full, complicated, contradictory, beautiful, terrible, human whole. The show sees Katara as the healer who bloodbends. The show sees Aang as the pacifist who destroys. The show sees Iroh as the uncle who burns. The show sees Zuko as the antagonist who is kind. And the seeing does not resolve the contradictions. The seeing holds them. The seeing says, this is a person, this is what a person looks like when you look at them completely. This is the price of being kind in a world that is not kind back. And the price is not too high. The price is the cost of being alive. The price is the cost of being human. The price is the cost of loving in a world that hurts what you love and that expecting you to keep loving anyway. The nice characters in Avatar pay this price. They pay it with their snaps. They pay it with the bloodbending and the Avatar state and the fire and the lightning and the skeleton surrounded by soldiers. They pay it with the tears that follow and the choices that follow the tears, and the long, slow, daily work of returning to kindness after the kindness has been shattered. They pay it and they keep paying it, and they do not stop being kind. They do not stop loving. They do not stop caring about the people who hurt them and the world that failed them and the future that requires their continued gentleness despite every reason to be harsh. That is the show's final statement about the nicest characters. Not that they are nice despite the snapping, that they are nice because of it, because the snapping taught them what niceness costs, because the breaking showed them what they were carrying, because the fire revealed what the tea was holding back, and the tea after the fire is sweeter, and the kindness after the breaking is stronger, and the person after the snap is more whole, not less, more. There is a philosophical tradition, one that the show's creators may or may not have been consciously drawing from, that speaks directly to what Avatar does with its nicest characters. The Japanese concept of kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. The idea is that the break is not something to hide. The break is something to illuminate. The gold fills the cracks, and the cracks become the most beautiful part of the vessel. The vessel is not less valuable for having been broken. The vessel is more valuable. The break and the repair together create something that the original, unbroken vessel could never have been. Every nice character in Avatar is kintsugi. Every one of them is a vessel that broke and was repaired, and the repair is visible, and the visibility is the beauty. Katara's crack is the Southern Raiders. The gold is her choice not to kill. Aang's crack is every Avatar state eruption. The gold is his choice to find energy bending. Iroh's crack is Lu Ten's death. The gold is the tea shop. Zuko's crack is the Agni Kai scar. The gold is the boy who walks out of the bunker and into the light. And the show does not hide the cracks. The show displays them. The show makes them central to the character's identity. Katara is defined as much by the Southern Raiders as by her healing. Aang is defined as much by the desert as by the penguin slides. Iroh is defined as much by the siege as by the tea. Zuko is defined as much by the scar as by the kindness that earned it. The breaks are not blemishes. They are features. They are the moments when the character was most visible, most real, most fully themselves. And the gold that fills them, the kindness that returns after the snap, the choice to be gentle after the violence, the daily work of being kind in the aftermath of breaking, that gold is the most beautiful thing about them. This is what Avatar teaches about kindness if you let it. That kindness is not porcelain. Kindness is kintsugi. It breaks and it is repaired, and the repair makes it more valuable, and the breaking was not a catastrophe. The breaking was the beginning of something more beautiful than the thing that existed before the break. The nice characters in Avatar are not nice because they never broke. They are nice because they broke beautifully, because the gold they use to fill their cracks is the gold of chosen kindness, deliberate gentleness, conscious compassion. The gold of knowing what you are capable of and choosing something else. The gold of the snap survived, and the person who survived it choosing every day to pour the tea and make the joke and hold the hand and be kind in a world that has given them every reason not to be. The show aired its final episode on July 19th, 2008. The last image is the group together, safe, alive, changed. Every one of them carrying the cracks of their journey and the gold of their choices. Katara has blood-bended and chosen mercy. Aang has raged and chosen peace. Iroh has burned and chosen tea. Zuko has been burned and chosen kindness. Toph has been caged and chosen strategy. Suki has been imprisoned and chosen love. They are all, every one of them, broken vessels repaired with gold. And they are beautiful, not despite the breaks, because of them. There is something in the show's ending that echoes the concept so perfectly, it could not have been accidental. The group gathers at Iroh's tea shop, the Jasmine Dragon, in Ba Sing Se, the city Iroh once conquered and then liberated, the city that represents both his greatest failure and his greatest triumph, the break and the gold. And they drink tea, the gentle, warm, unremarkable act of drinking tea, after everything, after the genocide and the war and the snapping and the bloodbending and the Avatar state and the lightning and the fire, after all of it. Tea. That is the show's last word on kindness. Not a speech, not a lesson, not a moral delivered to the audience through a character looking at the camera. Tea. The small, daily, ordinary act of kindness that the nice characters return to after the extraordinary act of snapping. The act that says, the fire was real and the tea is real. And the tea continues after the fire, and the fire does not mean the tea was false, and the tea does not mean the fire was false. And both happened, and both matter, and the person sitting here drinking this tea is the person who bloodbended, and the person who raged, and the person who defied, and the person who defied, and the person who fought to the death surrounded by soldiers, and the person who is now, after all of it, choosing to sit and drink and be with the people they love. That is what it looks like when the nicest characters snap and survive the snapping. It looks like tea. It looks like kindness returned to after the violence. It looks like the ordinary chosen after the extraordinary. It looks like a warm cup in two hands, and the steam rising and the friends around you, and the knowledge carried quietly that you have been broken and repaired, and the repair made you more beautiful than you were before. And the beauty is not in what you survived, but in what you chose to become after surviving it. There is a conversation worth having about the specific moment in the Southern Raiders that the show uses as its emotional fulcrum, and it is the rain. Katara confronts Yon-Ra in the rain. The rain is significant because water is Katara's element. Rain is water. Rain is, in the grammar of Avatar's bending system, an environment that maximizes Katara's power. And the show uses this to create the most visually striking image of a snap in the entire series. Katara raises her arms and the rain stops. Not slowly, not gradually, instantly. Every raindrop in the frame freezes in place. The water hangs suspended around Katara and Yon-Ra like a galaxy of tiny glass spheres. And the visual tells you everything you need to know about what Katara has become in this moment. She is not bending the water, she is controlling the sky. She has taken the entire environment, every molecule of water in the air above them, and placed it under her authority. The rain obeys her. The world obeys her, And the man kneeling in front of her, the man who killed her mother, is made of water too. The visual is a threat. The visual says, I can control rain. What do you think I can do to you? And Yan-Ra understands the threat. He falls. He begs. He offers his own mother in his place. He is pathetic. He is a man who committed a war crime and then went home and became nobody. And the nobody he became is exactly the kind of nobody who would offer his mother's life to save his own. And Katara sees this. Katara sees the full scope of who this man is. The monster who killed Ki is a coward who resents his mother. The monster is small. The monster is ordinary. The monster is the kind of person who exists in every war, in every army, in every conflict throughout history. Ordinary people who do monstrous things and then go home and tend their gardens and eat their dinners and do not think about what they did because thinking about it would require a depth of moral engagement that they have never possessed. And this ordinariness is what breaks the snap. Not Aang's philosophy of forgiveness, not any moral argument. The ordinariness. Katara came for a monster and found a man. She came for a villain and found a retired soldier with a bad temper and a sad life. She came for the embodiment of everything that was taken from her and found someone who was not worth the rage she had been carrying for years. The snap collapses under the weight of its own disproportionality. The rage is enormous. The target is small, and the gap between them is the gap that stops Katara from killing him. This is one of the most psychologically honest moments in animated television, because the truth about revenge, the truth that most revenge narratives avoid, is that the target is almost never equal to the rage. The rage is fed by years of grief and imagination and the constant mental work of keeping the wound open. The target is just a person who did something terrible and then continued to be a person with all the smallness and ordinariness that personhood entails. The gap between the rage and the target is the gap that makes revenge ultimately unsatisfying. You cannot pour an ocean of grief into a cup of a man and expect the cup to hold it. The cup breaks. The ocean remains, and you are left standing in the rain with the power to control the sky and nobody worth using it on. Katara drops the rain, she lets the suspended droplets fall, the sky resumes its business, and she walks away. Not satisfied, not healed, not at peace, just done. Done with this specific iteration of the grief. Done with this specific expression of the snap. The grief remains, the anger remains, the loss remains. But the direction of it, the focus, the target has been revealed as insufficient. And the insufficiency is its own kind of answer. Not an answer that resolves the question, an answer that shows the question was wrong. The question was never, should I kill this man? The question was, will killing this man fill the hole? And the answer, visible in the pathetic ordinariness of Yan-Ra kneeling in the mud, is no. It would not. It could not. Because the hole is not shaped like a man. The hole is shaped like a mother. And no act of violence against the man who made the hole can fill it. Only the grief can live there. Only the love. This scene teaches something about snapping that no other scene in the series teaches. It teaches that the snap can end not through resolution, but through disillusionment. Not through the kind person choosing to be kind again, but through the kind person realizing that the unkindness is pointless. That the target is too small for the weapon. That the rage, however justified, however earned, however deeply rooted in real loss and real pain, does not have a worthy outlet. And the realization does not make the rage go away. The realization makes the rage homeless. Wandering, looking for a place to land that does not exist because the place that would have held it, the man who killed Kia, turned out to be a cup too small for the ocean. Katara carries the homeless rage back to the group. She tells Aang she will never forgive Yan-Ra. She is not performing a moral position. She is describing a fact. The forgiveness is not available. The forgiveness would require a belief that Yan-Ra's suffering matters, that his remorse is real, that his punishment is sufficient. Katara does not believe any of these things, but she also does not believe that killing him would have mattered either. The snap showed her both truths simultaneously, that Yan-Ra deserves punishment and that no punishment would be enough. And the space between those two truths, the impossible space where punishment is deserved and also pointless, is where Katara lives after the Southern Raiders. It is not a comfortable space. It is not a resolved space. It is the space that real grief occupies. The space where the loss is permanent and the anger is permanent. And the kindness returns not because the anger was defeated, but because the anger exhausted itself against a target too small to absorb it. There is a moment in the series finale that connects the snapping of nice characters to the show's central philosophical question. And it is the moment when Aang grabs hold of Ozai's forehead and chest and begins the process of energy bending. The visual is extraordinary. 2 pillars of light, one blue and one orange, emanating from the point of contact between Aang and Ozai, growing larger, expanding, consuming both figures. And the show takes a moment in the midst of this cosmic event to show you what is happening inside Aang. The blue light is Ozai's, and the orange is winning. It is consuming the blue. It is overwhelming Aang's spirit with the sheer force of Ozai's will. And for a moment, a terrible moment, it seems like Aang is going to lose. That the nice character's attempt to be merciful is going to be his undoing. That the kindness of not killing Ozai has put Aang in a position where Ozai's darkness could consume him. And then the blue fights back, not with violence, not with force, with persistence. The blue light pushes back against the orange, not by overwhelming it, but by refusing to be extinguished, by simply continuing to exist in the presence of something that is trying to destroy it, by maintaining its own nature, its own quality, its own fundamental character in the face of a force that demands it change. The blue is Aang. The blue is kindness. The blue is the nice character refusing to stop being nice, even when the universe is trying to force the niceness out of him. This is the show's ultimate statement about snapping. The nice characters snap because the world is hard and the kindness is finite and the container has limits. But the nice characters survive the snap because the kindness, tested and broken and reformed, is ultimately stronger than the thing that broke it. The blue light wins. Aang's spirit prevails. The kindness overcomes the darkness, not by becoming darkness, but by remaining kindness. By simply, stubbornly, impossibly refusing to be anything other than what it is. Energy bending works because Aang's spirit is unbendable. And Aang's spirit is unbendable because it has been bent. It has been tested, it has been pushed to its breaking point in the desert, and the Southern Air Temple and the Crystal Catacombs. It has snapped and reformed and snapped again and reformed again, each time coming back a little harder, a little stronger, a little more resilient. The snapping was not the enemy of the unbendable spirit. The snapping was the training. Every break made the spirit harder to break. Every snap made the kindness harder to snap. Every time the nice characters survived the worst version of themselves and chose to return to the best version became more durable. Until the best version could withstand the full force of the most powerful firebender in the world trying to consume it and say no. I am this. I remain this. You cannot make me something else. This is the final connection between all the snaps in the series. They are training, they are preparation, they are the forge that tempers the metal. Every snap Aang survived made him strong enough for this moment. Every snap Katara survived made her the person who could stand in the rain and choose not to kill. Every snap Iroh survived made him the man who could burn and cry at the same time. Every snap Zuko survived made him the prince who could walk away from the throne. The snapping was always the teacher. The kindness was always the student. And the lesson was always the same. You will break, you will survive, and the surviving will make you unbreakable. Not invulnerable, not immune to pain, not beyond the reach of grief or rage or the terrible things the world does to kind people. Unbreakable in the specific sense that the breaking no longer destroys. The breaking still happens, the container still cracks, the ocean still spills. But the vessel, repaired with gold, is stronger at the cracks than it was at the places that never broke. The nice characters snap. The nice characters survive the snap. And the nice characters, at the end of the series, drinking tea at the Jasmine Dragon, are the strongest people in the world. Not because they were never broken, because they were broken so many times that the breaking became the material they were made of. Gold in every crack, fire in every scar, love in every wound, kindness in every break. The show ends. The tea steams. The friends sit together in the warm light of a shop owned by a man who lost his son and chose tea over fire and has been choosing it every day for years and will continue choosing it tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. The nicest characters snapped, and then they chose to be nice again, and the choosing, repeated daily, is the strongest force in the entire show. Stronger than the comet, stronger than the Avatar state, stronger than bloodbending or lightning or the fire that burns through walls. The daily, quiet, unremarkable choice to be kind, after everything, despite everything. There's a quiet parallel in the show that becomes visible only when you think about the nicest characters and their snaps together, and it is the parallel between water and fire. Katara is a waterbender whose snap involves taking control of water inside a human body. Iroh is a firebender whose snap involves releasing fire that he has been containing for years. Water and fire. The two elements that in Avatar's cosmology are presented as opposites, and yet the snapping process is identical. Both characters contain something. Both characters reach a moment when the containment fails. Both characters release what they have been holding, and the release is devastating, and the devastation is temporary, and the return to containment is the choice that defines them. Water and fire snap the same way. The dam breaks or the volcano erupts. The metaphors are different, but the mechanism is identical. Something was held back, something got out, something was put back. And the person who did the holding and the releasing and the reholding is changed by the cycle, not destroyed, changed. The water learns it can be a weapon. The fire learns it can be a tool for liberation. And both learn that the containment, the daily work of holding back what could destroy, is not a limitation. It is a practice, a discipline, a choice that becomes, through repetition and through the testing of the snap, a defining characteristic. Katara contains the blood bending because she chooses to. Iroh contains the fire because he chooses to. And the choice, made daily, made in the full knowledge of what they are containing, is what makes them who they are. The show extends this parallel to the other elements. Aang, an airbender, snaps through expansion. Air expands, the avatar state is Aang expanding beyond the boundaries of his own personality, his own identity, his own containment, into something cosmic and boundless and terrifying. The snap is not a breaking of a dam or an eruption of a volcano. It is a dispersal, a scattering. The personality flies apart and the power fills the space where the personality was. And the return, the pulling back together, the recontainment of the dispersed self is the most difficult recovery of any snap in the series. Because you cannot put air back in a bottle the way you can put water behind a dam or fire back in a furnace. Air goes everywhere. Air fills every space. Pulling it back requires something that Aang spends the entire series learning: the ability to let go and the ability to hold on at the same time. The ability to be the wind and also the person the wind moves through. Zuko, a firebender, snaps differently from Iroh because Zuko's fire was never contained by choice. Zuko's fire was contained by suppression, by his father's abuse, by the ideology that told him his kindness was weakness. The fire Zuko releases in the confrontation with Ozai is not the same fire Iroh releases during the liberation. Iroh's fire is old, refined, accumulated over decades. Zuko's fire is young, raw, unprocessed. It is not fire as power. It is fire as identity. The lightning Zuko redirects is not a weapon. It is a boundary. The lightning says, "This is where your power over me ends. This is where my self begins." And the self that begins, the kind self, the turtle duck self, the self that was buried by the scar and the banishment and the 3 years of pretending to be something else, that self is on fire too. But its fire is warm. Its fire is the campfire around which the group will eventually gather. Its fire is the fire that heals rather than destroys, that illuminates rather than burns, that exists not to dominate, but to warm. The elements snap the way the people snap. Water breaks its banks, fire erupts, air disperses. Earth, in Toph's case, compresses under pressure until it becomes something new entirely, something the world has never seen. Metal bending, a transformation so radical that it constitutes not a snap, but a birth. The elements are not metaphors for the characters, the elements are expressions of the characters. And the snapping, in every case, follows the nature of the element. The nature determines the form of the break. The form of the break determines the shape of the recovery. And the shape of the recovery determines who the character becomes after the snap. This elemental framework gives the show a visual and narrative vocabulary for snapping that no other show possesses. It can show you what grief looks like as water, what rage looks like as fire, what dispersal looks like as air, what transformation looks like as earth. And in showing you these things, it gives you a way to understand your own snaps. Not literally, you do not bend elements, but metaphorically. The way your grief flows, or your anger erupts, or your identity scatters, or your perspective transforms under pressure. The elements are languages for emotional experience. And the snapping in each elemental language says the same thing. You are made of something powerful. You contain something significant. And when the containment fails, when the snap comes, what pours out is not something foreign. It is you, the deepest, rawest, most elemental version of you. The version that the containment both protects and hides. The version that the world is not prepared for, but that exists regardless, under the surface, in the deep water, in the banked fire, in the still air, in the compressed earth, waiting for the moment when the containment cracks and the truth steps out. The nice characters snap because the truth is too large for the containment, and the truth when it emerges is not something to fear, it is something to know. Something to integrate, something to fill with gold, and carry forward into a life that is richer for having been broken and repaired and broken again and repaired again and so on, endlessly the cycle of kindness and snapping and return, the cycle that is not a flaw in the design but the design itself. You are part of the cycle. You have always been part of the cycle. And the cycle tonight is at the part where the kindness returns, where the tea is poured, where the rain falls normally again, where the fire becomes warmth, and the water becomes healing, and the air becomes breath, and the earth becomes ground beneath your feet. Rest on it. The ground will hold you. It has been broken too, and it is stronger for it. There is one more thing to say about the nicest character snapping, and it is about you. Because if you are listening to this, if you are lying in the dark and letting these words wash over you, then you are probably someone who has been kind, not because you had to be, because you chose to be. Because kindness seemed like the right way to move through the world, and you committed to it, and you carried it, and you offered it day after day to people who sometimes returned it and sometimes did not. And if you have been kind for long enough, honestly kind, deeply kind in the way that costs something, then you know what the snap feels like. You know the moment. You might be thinking of it right now, the moment when the kindness was not enough, when the container cracked, when the thing you had been holding back came forward and the person who came forward was not the person you thought you were. You might be ashamed of that moment. You might carry it the way Katara carries the blood bending, as proof that the kindness was a lie, as evidence that the real you is the person who snapped, not the person who was kind. And the kindness was just a mask you wore over the anger, and the anger was the truth. The show says no. The show says the anger was real, and the kindness was real, and neither one was the mask, and neither one was the truth. And both were the truth, and the truth is that you are a person who contains both, and the containing is the work, and the work is not easy, and the work will sometimes fail, and the failure does not mean the work was worthless. The failure means you are human, and being human means breaking sometimes. And breaking sometimes means you are carrying something heavy enough to be worth breaking over. And carrying something heavy enough to be worth breaking over means you love something. And loving something means you are alive. The nice characters in Avatar snapped because they loved. They snapped because they cared. They snapped because the world they inhabited was full of things worth fighting for. And the fighting, when it came, was the expression of the caring, not the negation of it. And after the snapping, they returned to kindness. Not the same kindness, not the naive kindness, not the kindness that had never been tested. A deeper kindness, a heavier kindness, a kindness that knew its own weight because it had felt the weight in the moment of the snap and had chosen, after the snapping, to pick the weight back up and carry it again. Not because carrying it was easy, because carrying it was worth it. You are carrying something. You have been kind despite it. You may snap, you may have already snapped, and the snapping may have frightened you. It may have made you doubt the kindness. It may have made you wonder whether you are who you thought you were, whether the nice version of you is the real version, whether the person who snapped is hiding underneath, waiting to emerge again. The show's answer is the simplest and the hardest. Both are you. Both have always been you. And the choice to return to kindness after the snap, the choice to pick up the weight again, the choice to be kind one more time in a world that has given you every reason to stop. That choice is not weakness. That choice is the strongest thing you will ever do. Stronger than the snap, stronger than the rage, stronger than the bloodbending or the avatar state or the fire that tears through walls. The choice to be kind after you've been unkind, the choice to be gentle after you've been violent, the choice to pour the tea after you have breathed the fire. That is what the nicest characters in Avatar teach you. Not how to avoid the snap, how to survive it, how to return from it, how to be kind again after the kindness is broken, how to fill the cracks with gold, how to be more beautiful, not less, for having been broken. You are lying in the dark. You are thinking about the moments when your kindness cracked. You are wondering whether the cracks define you. They do not define you. They are part of you. And the gold you fill them with, the kindness you choose after the breaking, the gentleness you rebuild from the wreckage of the rage, that gold is the most beautiful thing about you. Not your unbroken kindness, not your perfect, untested goodness, your repaired kindness, your post-snap gentleness, your choice to be kind one more time, knowing what it costs, knowing what it risks, knowing that the snap might come again and you might break again and the breaking might be ugly and the aftermath might be hard and the work of returning to kindness might be the hardest work you have ever done. You will do it anyway, because that is what the nicest people do. They snap and then they choose. And the choosing is the whole story. Sleep well. The kindness will be there in the morning. It always is, even after the fire. especially after the fire. If you found something worth carrying away tonight, subscribing helps more than you would think. Thank you for staying. I will see you in the next one.